Okay, so am I echoing to you? I mean, I'm going to echo to me because I'm hearing myself on your mic, but that's okay. As long as it's the kids can hear me.
I can hear you and there's no echo over here.
I can hear
Okay,
you.
thank you. Okay, thank you guys and girls. That's awesome. Okay, should we get started then? We're good? We're good, Mr. Duran? Thumbs up?
Yep, we're good. Yeah, so
Okay.
so the biggest thing is when I turn off my microphone in your presentation, that won't allow any echoing. So if I turn this off and then I have my volume up on my computer, they can hear you fine. So everything seems to be good.
Okay, so the only thing I have to say, kids, can you still hear since he did that? Someone shout out.
Hi.
Yeah.
Oh, good, perfect. Okay,
Oh,
thank
now
you,
you're
honey.
echoey.
Okay,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they're
Oh,
echoing
now
now.
they're echoing.
So I'm just gonna turn this off, and then they can hear you fine, and I can hear you fine.
okay, so just so you know, I ask questions because I like the kids to be involved. So I do ask questions. So I guess the only difference is you'll just kind of have to be the moderator for me. They'll have to, or maybe I'll hear them, maybe they can, but I can't see them unmuting or anything. So I don't know if you want to, like they put their hands up like what you normally do, and then you call on a student to answer. Yeah, okay, so let's get going. Okay, good morning, everyone. We finally figured that out because when there's a will, there's a way. I'm not the techiest person in the world, but we figured it out. So let's go. My name is Officer Stotts, and I'm a federal police officer with the railway. So what that means is that I can go anywhere in the country to do my job. And unfortunately, the bad part about my job is that I have to go to incidents where people get hurt and even killed by trains. So we're going to talk about how that happens, and just to obviously make sure after this presentation that none of this stuff is ever going to happen to any of you guys and gals. So first, oh, your teacher left the room, but that's okay. Try not to talk over each other, but could, I guess the first to open their mic, tell me what the word trespassing means in a simple, kid-friendly explanation. What does trespassing mean?
It means someone coming into like your own property and like you're not, and they're not allowed to.
Perfect. Actually, usually kids, I'll get students to give me the first half, but forget the second half, going on private property, because going on private property means going into a mall and you're allowed to do that. But you're right, you actually got the second half right, which is not having permission to do that, going on someone else's private property without their permission. So what I'm talking about during this presentation is not being allowed to, because it's against the law, to walk down the middle of train tracks, to walk along beside train tracks, to take shortcuts across the train tracks, or hang out around the train tracks. All of that's actually against the law. And once you're 12 years old, you're actually old enough to be arrested for doing that if we catch you. Now, when I say arrested, that's more likely if you're doing something criminal, like damaging something, mischief, vandalism. Usually it's a ticket. And that ticket, the same ticket that if I pulled somebody over for speeding and I gave them a speeding ticket, it's that same kind of a ticket, except it's $615. That's a lot of money just for, walking down or taking a shortcut across train tracks. So not really worth it. So we're going to talk about why. So I want you to think about if there's a stranger in your backyard. Now, what might we be afraid of if there's a stranger in our backyard? We might be afraid of them breaking into our house. Well, we're afraid of people breaking into our trains and stealing stuff because pretty much everything comes on trains. All the stuff that goes to Walmart and Canadian Tire and the dollar store, all that stuff comes on trains because most of it comes from other countries. And then when it gets to Canada, it's taken off the ship and it's put on a train. The train drives to a city. In Ontario, it drives to Brampton. the train goes to Brampton, and then it's put on trucks. The container's put on trucks, and then it's taken to whatever store it needs to go to, whether that's Walmart, Canadian Tire, Leon's, you know, Home Depot, all those kinds of stores. So when people are down around our trains, we're wondering, are they here to break in and steal stuff? Then you might be afraid of them breaking your stuff, right? You know, causing mischief or vandalism to your things. Well, we're afraid of that too, because there's a lot of really important stuff along the train tracks, and it keeps the train safely on the trains. Like when you're out driving in a car, you see the traffic lights, the red, yellow, green. Trains, I mean, it's way more complicated than just red, yellow, green. There's a whole bunch of different combinations, and it's its own language, really, like a Morse code type language. But those colors are really important, and those lights are really important to tell the trains whether they have to stop or they can keep going, or if there's a problem up ahead, or people fixing the tracks up ahead. So we don't want anybody messing around with those and breaking them. We have special computers at every railway crossing. That's what makes those red lights flash and that gate come down when a train's coming. We don't want anyone messing around with that. We have special wires and things along the train tracks. We have heaters that blow hot air onto the train track during winter so they don't freeze in certain places, so that maybe the train track itself needs to move to switch the train from one train track to another, and we don't want those freezing. So when people are walking down along our train tracks, we wonder, are they messing around with stuff? Are they breaking anything? That could be a serious problem for the train. We also have people that need to work near the train tracks. So you might think, well, I might be afraid of a stranger in my backyard attacking and hurting me, because why else are they here? Well, our workers can be afraid of that same thing. They could be out 2 a.m, it's pitch black outside, and they're wondering, you know, why is this person walking towards me? Are they coming to attack and hurt me, or are they just taking a shortcut? You know, they don't know. So sometimes they're afraid, and that's not really fair, because they're just there to do their jobs, and they want to go home safely after their job, just like your parents do as well. So those are some of the reasons why it's against the law. We're going to talk about the safety issues now. So I'm going to need the teacher to call on students for this, so that we're not all millions of people calling out for my next question. And that's going to be, we have a guy here on the train bridge. This is just a fake picture. He's not really going to get hit by that train, but there's a train coming, and I want to hear every single thing you can think of that he can do to get out of the way. There's about 6 different things on this picture that he can do. I'm going to give the first one though. He cannot, someone might say, well, he could run fast and get away from the train. Well, if a train's going 50 kilometers an hour, which is pretty slow for a train, that's the speed cars are driving right now past your homes on your streets there in town. You can't run that fast. So you're not going to be able to run fast enough to get away from the train. But I've seen lots of crazy stuff on YouTube and on TV shows, in movies, in music videos. You know, so I know you guys have seen some stuff to do with train tracks and especially train bridges. So tell me where he could go. Someone's got to answer this question.
The picture's not coming up yet. We can only just see you.
Oh, did it not switch?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, more problems. And you're sharing my screen.
Yes.
Okay, let me do this. Let me reshare then. Let me.
It's echoing.
Oh, share. Yeah, I'm going to reshare. Oops.
Now I see it.
What do you see? What's the picture?
A train, and there's like these weird rail.
Okay, perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
so let me know, because if I have to like unshare and reshare for every slide, that's fine. I will do that. Okay, so we have We have a train. So I want to know where this guy could go. We've already said he can't run fast enough to get away. Any other ideas where he could go, how he could get away from this train?
Go ahead, Isaac.
He could move onto the other rail.
Yeah, so on the other train track, sure. And could that work? Yep, that could work. Everything we talk about could work, but the problem is there's also another side to that. There's also another danger to that. 2 train tracks mean 2 trains can come at the same time. So if there's no train coming, sure, that could work. But if there's another train coming, then he's going to be in trouble. Where else could he go?
Sophia, go ahead.
Maybe he could try to like duck down under something.
Okay, B, I want you to be really specific. Where? would he do
Like
that?
the
Be more
trail
descriptive.
track.
Like lie down on the train track
Yeah.
and let the train go over him. Okay, you know what? I'm really glad you brought that up because I've seen video of people doing this in real life. And the reality is, if you look at the train in my picture here, this
Mhm.
train has what we call, it's like a snowplow looking thing on the front, and it's not very high off the ground. It's only a few inches above the tracks. So you wouldn't fit under there. But when I've seen people do this in video, it's been a passenger train, like our GO trains and our VIA trains. And they do have a lot of room under there, a lot more room than a freight train. This is a freight train. It's a train that carries stuff versus a train that carries people. Our people trains, our GO trains and VIA trains, they have a much higher clearance from the ground up underneath the train. And yes, technically, you would fit under there. And the people that have actually done this have been very, like, just like a miracle that they survived, because the problem they don't think about, and I actually saw a video of a guy doing this on purpose, and he put a camera on his chest and he filmed the whole thing and put it on YouTube, thought it was so cool, you know, and of course, and he was lucky to get up and walk away from that safely. But the problem is, when you do that, you don't know what's going on underneath that train because it's a mechanical thing and it could have mechanical things wrong with it. Imagine if there was a bent piece of wire or a bent piece of metal hanging down underneath that train. That would cut you and probably, you know, kill you. You'd probably lose your life if that happened. So just because he was safe doing that doesn't mean that that would work every time, because our trains have things wrong with them, things going on underneath, stuff that wouldn't stop it from going on its trip, that the mechanics would say, oh, you know, the next time it comes in for its regular maintenance, we'll deal with that. But right now we'll just let it go on its way because it's not going to hurt anything. Well, it would hurt a person if they were lying down on the train track. So we don't ever want anybody trying that. Okay, what else? So we have other track, we have lying down on the tracks, we got running away. There's a few more obvious ones.
Go ahead, Bethany.
If there's a lake or water nearby, like just down below, you could jump into the water.
Right. So what are people always jumping off of and into, or not jumping off of, when they're jumping off of bridges in movies and stuff, they're always jumping down into water, right? But we don't always have water underneath our bridges. Actually, most of our railway bridges go over roadways. So you're jumping down onto a road, which is going to break every bone in your body and maybe even get you hit by a car. So that wouldn't work if there was a road under there. But, you know, some of our bridges do go over water. I think this one in this picture is going over water, but look how high up it is. We have some really high bridges. And jumping down into water from this height would be like hitting cement. So you might not survive that. Jumping into freezing cold water. I mean, we're in Canada, you know, all your water danger stuff. Falling into freezing cold water, you can't swim, your body shuts down, it gets too cold. So you could drown doing that. If the water's shallow, you might as well be jumping down onto a road, because you're going to get hurt doing that. Now, of course, like I said, everything can work. If the bridge was really low and the water was really high, sure, it could work. But we've also had people doing that up in cottage country where, oh my gosh, a train's coming. So they go to jump off, you know, what is a safe bridge for jumping, because it's a low bridge and it's high water, but they're wet, they're jumping off of a metal rail, like railing, and they slip and fall backwards onto the track. And now they're stunned and conked and hurt, and there's a train coming. So it's a very dangerous prospect doing that. Okay, what else? There's one more obvious one.
Ashita,
Actually, two more obvious ones.
go ahead, Ashita.
Maybe you could try to get the driver's attention or something by like raising your arms, because most train drivers won't see the bottom. So you could try like riding backward or something while trying to get their attention.
Okay, good comment. I'm gonna leave that answer for a moment because we're gonna address that, but that was very smart answer. We're gonna address that in the next in a couple of slides from now. Okay, one more.
Sophia, go ahead.
So if they're like, I can see like on the side of the bridge, there's like, beside the trail, there's this little part of,
Climb out onto?
yeah, like,
Yes.
if you could hang on to that for,
Sure.
a
So
minute.
that would be really scary. I mean, this one's like 10 stories tall. We better not be afraid of heights. And could that work? Yeah, it could. Can you see my Mr. Doran, can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I'm circling something beside the bridge right now, just to point some things out. So what I'm circling, if you stood there, you would still get hit by the train, because the train is, now, Mr. Doran, can you see this slide?
Yeah,
my
it
slide
says,
change?
it says 1 meter,
Perfect.
3
Okay, I just
feet
wanna make sure.
overhang.
Perfect. I just want to make sure you can see the slide again. Okay, so if you look at this slide, the train is wider than the train tracks. And people forget that. They forget that when they're trespassing, walking down beside the train tracks. And why are they walking beside them? Because there's usually a ditch on either side. So it's just easier to walk close to the train tracks or down the middle of them. But if you're walking beside them going, well, I'm not going to get hit by a train because I'm not on the train tracks. The train is wider than the train tracks. So that's an important thing to remember. So back to our train bridge picture. So that wouldn't work standing there. Climbing out onto the bars that are hanging way over. Yep, you could hold on to that. You'd be holding on for a while, and then you need to carefully get back. You could climb down. There's kind of a bar platform below the train tracks. You'd have to have the body strength to pull yourself back up. And if you slip, again, you're falling like 10 stories. So that'd be pretty scary. But could anything work? Anything could work, right? If it's a miracle, anything could work. But yeah, not a great idea. Okay, we're missing 2 more obvious ones. I'm kind of pointing to them. Anybody else?
Yes, Ashita, go ahead.
There's also those bars, so maybe the boy could like hang on and climb up.
Yeah, because they kind of look like ladders, right? They're
Yeah.
like a diamond shape, and they look like ladders. So yeah, you could climb up there and hold on. Our trains are like 2 kilometers long. And when it's going over a bridge, the bridge is going to be vibrating. So holding on a long time, maybe in the freezing cold, it's going to be difficult because your muscles are going to get very cold very fast, or very tired very fast. Now, could it work? Yes, it could. It's going to be difficult, but it could work. Just one more is in between the 2 train tracks, because I mean, we all know that trains pass each other all the time and they don't hit each other. There's room there. So you could go in between the 2 sets of train tracks. And even if there's 2 trains going by, you might sit there all squished up and safely let the trains go by. It'd be scary, but it might work. So could it work? Yes, it could. But again, these are mechanical things. They're holding lots of material. Stuff's held down by chains and ropes sometimes, and things break. So unfortunately, what could happen is this. So hopefully you can see this picture. It's got a metal spool hanging down. What happened is these metal bands broke. And so you're standing in the middle there with 2 trains going by, and this is a picture where the train stopped. But imagine the train moving again at 50 or 60 kilometers an hour through your town. And, if that hits you, I'm pretty sure you won't survive. if that were to hit you. So again, the train's not only wider than train tracks, but stuff could be hanging off of the train. And especially if you're walking down beside the train tracks with earphones on, like I have, which most kids are listening to music and stuff now when they're out walking, you know, they're not going to see the train coming up behind them because their back is to it, and they're not going to hear it because, you know, this is, you know, you've got earphones on or something. And even if you don't have earphones on, our passenger trains, like the Via trains that go through your area, are actually, they're small and they're very quiet. You won't hear them until it's too late. So another reason to never be on or around the train tracks. Now, let's get back to one of the students who said, wave your arms at the train. Well, sure, you could do that, but would the train be able to stop in time? That's the big question. So if a train is going, because outside the city, once our freight trains get outside the city, they can be going up to 100 kilometers an hour. And our Via trains, they go up to 160 kilometers an hour. So our freight trains are heavier and slower, but our passenger trains, they're lighter, but they're going way faster. So in the end, the time it takes them to stop is kind of similar. So I want some guesses as to how many big football fields, I mean the kind you see on TV, how many of those in a row do you think it's going to take a train to stop if it's going 80 to 100 kilometers an hour and it has to stop? It puts on all of its brakes, it's screeching down the train tracks trying to stop because it sees something in the way. I want some guesses. How many football fields?
Go ahead, Riley.
I want five guesses, please, in a row, Mr. Duran.
Go ahead, Riley.
Okay, next.
Bethany?
Yeah, maybe either 6 or 10 football fields.
Okay, so far we got 5 to 10. One more.
Shida?
This may be a very big guess, but maybe like 800 to 1,000.
Okay, nothing wrong with big guesses. Does anyone else want to guess?
Anyone else? I think that's it.
Mr. Doran, what do you think?
I'm going to say probably close to 100.
Wow, that's pretty far, but that's okay. I'd rather you thought too far than not far enough. Most guesses actually are between like 2 and 10, 2 and 12. Those are the normal guesses that I get. So the answer is actually 20 of those football fields. 20. And that's because the train's so heavy. 20 football fields is 2 kilometers. 2 kilometers to stop. And think about it. If you're messing around on the train tracks with your friends, you're goofing around, one of them knocks you, you know, you trip and stumble because there's lots of uneven rock, the ground's all even there, there's a train track, there's wood, you know, holding the train track together. It's easy to stub your foot and trip and fall. I know because I've done it more than once when I'm down on the train tracks. And now you're lying there either hurt or just stunned and everybody's laughing and now there's a train coming. Once that train sees you, if they can see you with their eyes, those train drivers, it's too late. They will never be able to stop in time. The train's just too huge and too heavy for them to be able to do that. Now, climbing through or underneath trains, we get this. What this starts to happen usually when a train, for some reason, maybe it's broken down, maybe there's an incident far ahead and it has to stop where it is because there's rules about how close trains can be to another train. So if they have to stop, they got to stop. And it might be in the middle of your town and your town is all railway crossings and then the whole town is blocked and people are like, I'm not waiting. I'm going to start climbing through or going under the train because it's blocking the road or the sidewalk that you're on. Well, the problem with this is the person driving the train is way down the train tracks in the train engine, and they have no idea you're back here doing this. So when it's time for them to move, they get that call on the radio, hey, train number 552, you're allowed to go now. They're just going to go. They're going to start the engines and go. They're not going to walk 2 kilometers back to see if people are doing this silly things. They're just going to go. And what happens is when a train pulls away, it doesn't pull away smoothly. It pulls away very, because everything's held together with springs. So it's kind of like dominoes. If you've ever seen dominoes falling, when the train pulls, each car, one after the other, each train car starts smashing and jiggling. So the person that's climbing through and they're holding on to those ladders, what happens is when it gets to their car that they're holding on to and it smashes and jiggles, their hands are holding on, all of a sudden their hands let go because they're shocked by that sudden jerking of that rail car they're holding on to. And then they end up falling down in between and onto the tracks and under the train. So I'm sure you can understand how bad news that would be. And then you have the other guy who's crawling under the train. Well, look at, again, remember we talked about lying down on the train tracks and the train going over us and there could be something hanging down. Well, look at all the mechanical stuff under there. When the train starts to move, that mechanical stuff you see is going to hit him and knock him off balance, and he's going to fall down under those tracks, under the train, and maybe even across the train. And if any body part falls across those train tracks, look at those train wheels. They are not made of rubber like a car. They're made of steel. So they're going to cut off whatever they run over. So he's going to end up getting one of his limbs cut off and maybe even lose his life if he falls across those train tracks. And also, he's carrying a backpack. Maybe it's winter. He could have a jacket on. That stuff, those mechanical things you see underneath the train there, that could hook on, grab onto a piece of his clothing and start dragging him away with the train. Now, again, the train drivers are way down the train tracks in the train engine. They don't know this is happening. So until somebody gets on their cell phone and calls 911 and says, oh my gosh, somebody's under the train, they just got run over, the train drivers aren't going to know. The 911 operator is going to have to call the CN emergency dispatchers. They're going to call the local police, whether it's OPP in your area, Belleville Police, Napanee Police. Then they're just then plus our dispatchers are going to call rail traffic control, and then rail traffic control is going to have to call on the radio to the train to say, stop, somebody's hurt or somebody's being dragged under there. I mean, imagine how long all those steps are going to take. And meanwhile, someone's being dragged underneath the train. So you may think, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late for work. I'm going to be late for school. I just want to get home. I'm going to be late for my job, or I'm going to my friend's house. Like, the best thing to do is just wait. Wait, or if you can, walk that extra half a kilometer around the train, because you just don't know when that train is going to stop. This is just so dangerous. Standing back. Now, I know. So you do have via trains, via stations near you. Napanee has one, Belleville has one, Kingston has one. You could be going to any one of those, or you might come into the city to see a Leafs game, a basketball game, a soccer game. You might take the GO train, say from Oshawa. Well, you really need to remember that yellow line on the platform is there for a reason, because I'm in the Toronto area right now talking to you from the Toronto area, and we've had people get pushed onto the train tracks. Quite a few, in fact, in the last few months, whether it was a GO train station platform, a via train station platform, or even a subway platform. So if you're waiting for a train, stand far back, because we have people that have done it maliciously and actually been charged with attempted murder. But we also have it happen accidentally, especially if it's a really busy platform and someone's going, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss my train. And they're like running for their train and they're kind of elbowing through the platform, and somebody could easily get knocked onto the train tracks in front of the train that's pulling into the station. So we always want to stand far back from the edge, so we don't end up on the train tracks when the train comes. Okay, we've talked about where we can't go, which is pretty much anywhere to do with train tracks, but we do have to cross them someplace safe. So we're going to do that at a railway crossing. And that's where, the trains go over the road or the sidewalk, and where we have things to tell you if a train's coming. Now, up in the corner of my picture is the big red and white X, and that's all alone. If that X is all alone, then you just have to, make sure yourself that nothing's coming. But in town, you're going to have, the big red X, you're going to have the red signals that are flashing. There might even be a gate, and we're all smart enough to know that if that stuff is going, that a train is coming. But does anybody know what the number 4 means on the pole? There's a number 4 here, and it's got a picture underneath it. Does anybody know what that means?
Go ahead, Riley.
Very good. Awesome. Well done. You know why I say that? Because it usually takes a few guesses for people to get that answer. So that was very good. Yes, it's telling you that there's 4 sets of train tracks at this railway crossing. You know what? There's a lot of adult drivers who you do not know the answer to that question. So good for you. So we have 2 sets of train tracks very close to us. When you're looking at the red and white gate there, if you look across the street down to far away where that other gate is, there's 2 more sets there. So that's where the 4 sets are. 4 sets of train tracks mean 4 trains could be coming at the same time. Why do we care? Why is this on the pole? Why does this matter? Well, because most people in cars that get hit by trains, they're not hit by the first train that goes by. Most of them are hit by the second one they never saw coming. And you think, well, how can that happen? It's huge. It's a train. And you have got all this stuff here to protect you. You've got red flashing lights, maybe even a gate that comes down. Well, first of all, the gate's only covering the road. The gate doesn't stop the sidewalk, or usually doesn't go across the sidewalks. There's some that do, but most don't. So people could be standing there waiting for the train to go by or come on the sidewalk and decide to race it across. Now, so what I'm saying is they break the law. That's the only way to get hit by a train, really, is to break the law. So the lights are going, the gate is down, a train is coming, and somebody decides they're going to beat that train. And they run across. And it could be a via train going 160 kilometers an hour. And your brain and your eyes cannot really understand that. So it might look really far away when you start to run across, but it's only going to be a second or two before it could be right where you are. The other way people get hit is after the train's gone by, and this is actually the most common way. So if you look at this picture, we have people sitting on their motorcycles and they're waiting for this silver train to go by, and it's almost done. It's almost off the road. It's almost through the crossing. It's almost time for them to be able to go across the road. But from where they're sitting, they can't see this train with the numbers coming on the other train track. So what happens is people are they're waiting for the train to go by. They're impatient. They're like, oh, my train's done. The silver train's done. It's out of my way. It's gone. I'm not, again, breaking the law. I'm not waiting for these lights to stop flashing. I don't care that the gate's not all the way up yet. And they start to go across the train tracks because they're in a hurry. They're in a rush. And then what's going to pop out? This train with the numbers coming on the other train track. They can't see it. And they can't hear it. Maybe they can hear it, but what they think they're hearing is the silver train. Maybe the train with the numbers is even honking its horn, but what they think they're hearing, again, is the silver train. So that's why you always have to wait for the lights to stop flashing and for the gates to be all the way up, not halfway up. Next time you're out in your car and a train goes by, watch the first car in line. They start to go as the gate goes up, and that's actually against the law. It's a $110 fine to the driver if they get caught doing that, because if the gate gets halfway up and another train comes on the other train track or even following on the same train track, the gate's going to go back down on top of the car, and then it's going to get damaged, and then it's not safe for other cars, to know if trains are coming or not. So that's why it has to be all the way up. Plus, if it's all the way up and the lights are off and you start to go across and then another train's coming and those lights start to flash again, you have enough time to get across. You just keep going and you get across. So that's why you need to wait for the lights to stop flashing, because there could be another train coming. You just can't see or hear coming. So last slide for us. This is a car stuck on the train tracks. Now it's kind of a silly picture because it doesn't normally happen like this. What usually happens is either a really silly driver will stop on the train tracks because there's a lineup of cars in front of it that are stopped. Maybe there's a traffic light up ahead and it's a really busy road. And instead of waiting until there's enough room to drive over the train tracks, they stop on the train tracks. And then a train's coming and they can't move forwards because there's a lineup of cars in front of them, and they can't back up because there's a lineup of cars behind them. So they're stuck. Or being that it's winter, we get blizzards, we get bad snowstorms, we get freezing rain. Sometimes cars actually slide off the road. You see them in ditches all the time in bad weather. Well, they could slide off the road onto train tracks too. If you look at the train tracks in this picture, where it goes over the road, the train tracks are even with the road. They're flat with the road. But look off to where the grass is, and you'll see that the train tracks are actually higher up from the road. So it's easy for a car to get stuck there if that's where they slide off the road and end up. Don't push your car off the train tracks. Don't care about the car at all. Don't worry, moms and dads are super fast at grabbing those baby seats. They're very good at it. If there's a baby seat in the back, they'll just unhook, grab it, and go. Just get out of your car and get far away. Even if a train's not coming yet, get far away. Because if a train does come, it's going to smash the car. You don't want to be near the car when it gets smashed. You don't want to get hurt by the car. And stuff's going to go flying from the car, right? If the car gets smashed, parts are going to go flying, glass and the door and car parts. And you just want to be far away from that when that happens. So get out, get far away from the car, and then call 911. And then obviously 911 is going to call, again, the railway, and they're going to try and call the train and stop the train if there's one coming. Can they stop the train? Maybe. A lot of times we are able to stop the train in time, but sometimes we're not. Remember the two football fields? Remember the 2 kilometers it could take a train to stop? If the train's closer than 2 kilometers, it might not be able to stop. So just get out. We don't care about the car. The car has insurance. The car can be replaced. You can't be replaced. So get out, get far away, and call 911. Okay, so that is the end of our talk. So I think you guys hopefully are smart enough now to know why you shouldn't be, crossing the train tracks. We have a high school. I don't know exactly which area you guys are in. Someone yell out what town you're near or in.
Madoc.
Belleville.
Madoc? Okay. So I don't know where you're going to be going to high school, but I know there's some high schools that back right onto our tracks. Like there's one in Belleville, and the high school kids are always crossing across those tracks, and the officer, CM police officer that works there, is usually giving them tickets. So I hope you guys, when you go on to high school, you're smart enough to not do that. Especially we keep telling the students there, we have VIA trains are going to come through here at 160 kilometers an hour, and they're not going to be able to stop if you're in the way. So it's very dangerous. Now, are there any questions? I don't know, maybe a bell's going or the bell has gone, or I don't know what Mr. Duran wants to do, but if anyone has any questions.
Yes, we have some time for some questions. Go ahead, Sophia.
The last slide where it shows the car on the train track, if a train hits it, could it actually explode the car?
That's usually what happens in the movies, and it could, absolutely, it could. Does it?
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't normally explode. That's kind of a movie thing where they purposely make it so that it'll explode. It normally doesn't,
okay.
but it's still just as dangerous. It doesn't need to explode to be dangerous, because once it gets
crunches
smashed,
the
things are
ground.
gonna go flying, right? So you want to be away from that. But very good question. Thank you. Anyone else?
Bethany, go ahead.
If you're in a subway station and you touch the metal, can it shock you?
Very good question. Yes, it can. Yeah, because subways are run by electricity. That's why there's signs there that show a person falling with a little lightning bolt in it. And that means stay back. It's electricity. So yes, you could get electrocuted falling on those tracks. if you just touch them normally, because again, we've had people fall on them and they weren't electrocuted, and that's because there wasn't a train there yet. But once a train is coming, those tracks get electrified from the train wheels touching them, and that's when it's super dangerous. But the trains that are above ground, so the freight trains that go through your area, the VIA trains and the GO trains that are in this end of the province, they run by diesel fuel. They will be electric at some point, but electric as in like electric vehicles, like battery powered. The rails won't be electric. And then there's electric kind of train cars in Toronto too that are on the roadway. But the actual big trains on the train tracks are actually diesel, so you won't get electrocuted touching those train tracks. But you will be trespassing if you're close enough to touch those kinds of train tracks. Anyone else?
Go ahead, Ashita.
Yeah, so like usually on trains you see those ladders. So like is there any way that you could use those ladders to escape if a train's coming at you from the side?
Ah, okay. Where are we gonna? I'm gonna find that. My guy's on the ladders. Yeah, there are ladders there. Okay, so that was another one you could have told me when we were on the bridge, right? How do you get away from the train? Jump onto the train. I actually kind of just forgot about that too, but thank you for bringing that up. So I want you to think about this. So first of all, let's just talk about a really slow train, because most trains are going 80 kilometers. They're going to be going 80 kilometers through your area, at least 80 kilometers. And again, the VIA's even faster. They're going faster than cars on the highway. But let's say it's a super slow train going through, but a super slow train is still, 30 kilometers an hour. That's the slow speed cars have to drive when they're driving by a school. So the next time you see a car driving by a school at 30 kilometers an hour or 40 kilometers an hour, think to yourself, if I wanted to jump onto that car, could I? Can you run 30 to 40 kilometers an hour? No. A train's an optical illusion. It looks like it's going slow enough to jump onto because it's so long. It looks like it's going slower than it is. But if you actually just looked at one car at a time, you'd be seeing it going zoop, 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 instead of flowing as if it's going slow. So it's going faster than you think. And what happens is people try to jump on, they say grab onto something like that ladder, but their feet can't keep up with them. So now they're being dragged because they're holding on. The train is dragging them away and they have to let go. So if they let go, yeah, they're going to hurt themselves because they're literally falling and smashing. And usually they end up falling on the tracks and we end up with people with limbs cut off or killed doing that. So very, very bad idea to try. And they do it in the movies all the time again, but in the movies, they're going extra, extra, extra slow for the actors to do that. In reality, it doesn't work like it does in the movies. Anyone else?
Go ahead, Sophia.
What's a limb?
A limb is anything sticking out from your body, like your arm or your leg. So what I'm saying is when people fall under the train track, say their arm is sticking out over the train track, the metal of the train track, and then the wheel runs over the arm or the leg, right?
Oh,
then
yeah.
it's going to end up getting cut off from that train wheel. That's why climbing through or under or trying to climb onto, like why it's just so dangerous. Because even if you don't lose your life from doing that, you could be, permanently injured for the rest of your life doing that by even smashing your head so hard that you have a head injury for the rest of your life. Like there's just so many ways you could be seriously hurt, around trains.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Can you become paralyzed?
Yes, we have. So, it's really sad, but when people get hit by trains, they don't just, if they survive, what is surviving? Like they don't just get up, go to hospital, recover and then go on with their lives. They're either, in my career, all the people that have been hit by trains, maybe one or two because they just got bumped by the train. They were barely touched for other reasons, but if they were truly hit by the train, they were either had brain damage, they were paralyzed, or they had a part of their body cut from the train wheels. So those are permanent, serious destructive injuries that they had to live with for the rest of their lives. Getting hit by a train does not mean just recovering in hospital and going home and everything's okay again. You get hit by a car, absolutely, people get hit and killed when they get hit by cars. I'm not making light of that, but a lot of people get hit by cars and also they're fine the rest of their life. That doesn't happen with a train. But thank you. That's a very, very smart, intelligent question.
Okay, Ashita.
It's not really a question, but I was just gonna say that yesterday or day before yesterday, I heard on the news that a like bus, I'm not sure if it was like a school bus or something, came and hit one hydro pole or something, and there was like 2 or 3 injured.
Yeah, well, hydro poles also have electricity to them, right? So that's really they have to be saved in a very special way from the fire department. They got to get the electricity turned off and everything. But yeah, I mean, people say, well, are the train crews injured or anything? No, because a train hitting something is like a car driving over a pop can. I think you can imagine how easy it is for a car to drive over and squish a pop can. You're just a little pop can to that train. The train's just so huge and so heavy. Like it's not really, there's no competition. The train's going to win.
All right, I think that's it for the questions.
Okay,
so
perfect.
I just wanted to say on behalf of the entire class, thank you very much for your detailed presentation, and definitely some things that we need to reminders, and some things that we need to look for when we're moving forward, and make sure that if they do get a chance, that they can share the same information with friends and family.
Yeah, because you know what your teacher said is very relevant, because I'm not teaching this to you. I'm not picking on you because I find kids doing this. You know what? Kids are the best. They don't do this stuff. Hopefully we're teaching this to you so you don't grow up and do this stuff. It's actually adults that do this stuff the most. So, you sharing this with your parents or aunts and uncles and stuff, or big brothers and sisters, they're the ones that are doing this stuff. You guys are the smart ones, actually. So, but thank you for having me, and thank you, Mr. Duran, for helping us, figure all this tech stuff out and making it work. I now have a good idea going forward for other classes that I do that have this issue. I hope you guys have an amazing summer. It's beautiful weather now. Just stay away from train tracks when you're out having fun. Okay?
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, and if there's any questions, any more questions, tell your teacher and he can send me an email. I'd be very happy to answer them if you think of something later. Okay? Bye.
Bye.
I promise. Well, I'll try to not.
Yeah, thanks very much. It is break time now, so we'll